and welcome to Whisky Angelz. I'm your host, Max. And if you've just stumbled across this podcast expecting a refined whiskey podcast, you're probably in the wrong place. For here you will find a bit of cask strength chaos, which is especially relevant as it's the first episode that we're doing. I'll be doing a bit of a tasting in a moment with a whiskey that is worth £360 a bottle, which was not intentional when I set that whiskey up. I did not know the value of it. So I'll be telling you all about that whiskey very shortly. But at the moment, this is a shiny new podcast. We've literally got the paint drying on the walls. I've got many shiny buttons that I can accidentally press and things go wrong. Okay, those are great sound effects, but I'm not going to be using them overly much because it would just be a ridiculous thing to do. No, seriously, I just can't use them too much. Sorry, too many already. Okay. So this is the introductory episode. To get things off the ground, what can you expect from Whisky Angelz? Well, there'll be chat, tasting, and of course, lots of stories all about the culture around whisky. And of course, the occasional disaster story that comes with Scotland's most iconic drink. Now, before we dive in with a quick news roundup, I'd like to do a quick shout out to all our subscribers. We are a brand new podcast, so every single subscriber, and that does mean you, really matters to us. So please do jump on board, hit subscribe. If you're into whiskey, please do share the new podcast with people. We really want to make this quite a centre for people to come and enjoy a bit of chat, enjoy a bit of the tastings, and learn a little bit more about this wonderful, wonderful liquid. Now, well, what about me? Well, I love whiskey. I've grown up in Edinburgh, in Scotland, and I remember being driven round Edinburgh as a lad, and you'd come in along the approach road, and you'd be going past the North British Distillery, which is a single grain whiskey distillery, and you'd get all those lovely smells coming from that brewing process. And it really, it's one of those smells that brings back those moments very clearly in my memory. It's very evocative. And now, as a filmmaker, I've been very lucky to visit a huge number of the whiskey distilleries over the years. And I really want to bring those experiences to you because it reflects a little bit on the people and the places that I've managed to visit. And of course, you guys out there will have been to some of the whiskey distilleries, maybe in your own countries, maybe in Scotland, maybe you visited some of the Islay malts or up in the Highlands or in Speyside. So please do just give us your thoughts through comments, interactions, subscriptions through our Substack website. And get involved. Okay, I'm going to press a shiny new button, which hopefully will give us the movie tone news music. There we go. So let's kick off with a little bit of news. First up, we have Glenallachie 12-year-old single malt, which has just been crowned the world's best single malt whiskey for 2025 at the Whisky Awards, the World Whisky Awards. Now, we really need to get a tasting done on this one, so we'll hopefully get that coming up in a episode in the future. This Speyside beauty beat off contenders from Ireland, from Japan, and of course all around Scotland as well. It's matured in Pedro Jimenez Oloroso sherry cask, so it's basically a dessert in a bottle, and that's my favourite sort of whiskey personally. So hats off to Glenallachie for proving that independence as a small distillery company can still achieve greatness. Okay, cue the sad music. I'm not going to be talking about this for long because it's too much of a downer, but tariffs. Let's talk about Donald Trump's 10% import tax, which is very likely to hit the Scotch whisky industry hard. As reported in The Guardian, the industry lost a staggering £600 million the last time he pulled this stunt, back when there was a 25% tariff slapped on single malt whisky, liqueurs and single malts as collateral damage in a trade dispute about planes. That was £1 million a day for 18 months. Not to mention a 25% drop in exports to the US during the last few months of 2019. Now we're bracing for round two, and while the tariff is lower this time, its duration is just unknown. It's anybody's guess. It could be for the next 4 years, or if Trump tries to do something weird and wonderful, he might try and extend that for even longer. But we just don't know. So anyway, we're going to be having that 10% added. And it's a shock, the whiskey industry in the UK supports 66,000 jobs. So that could really affect the UK. So anybody that says what happens with the US elections and why should we not be interested in what happens in the US? Well, this is the sort of world impact that you can actually see happening. Okay, that's a little bit of darkness in the news. So let's move on to something that's a little bit more fun. Yes, back to the movie tone music. We've just had the Scottish National Whisky Festival, and they've got a number of different events throughout the year, but we've just had one in Glasgow where hundreds of visitors came to sip, sample, and soak up the wonderful culture that is surrounding whisky. It's a chance for you to get together as a community and, of course, have a night out. Have a bit of a commune with other people who love the whisky liquid. There are many festivals all around Scotland. I'm really looking forward to the Islay Whisky Festival, which is coming up later in the year. Apart from round Scotland, you'll obviously have them around the rest of the UK. You have them around the rest of the world. If you get a chance to go to a whisky festival, it's a really good opportunity because you do get people travelling for it. So you can meet people from all around the world that share your passion of whisky. Now, that brings me quite neatly onto what we're going to be talking about in terms of passion about whisky. That is our Desert Island Dram, which is going to be a regular slot on the podcast. So when we have a guest in, we'll be asking them, what is their Desert Island Dram? So I'm going to be talking about what my Desert Island Dram is. And it's on this shelf. There it is behind me. I can't tell you about it today because I found it in my collection. And I looked in it and I thought it was going to be an open bottle. It's a closed bottle and it's quite an old bottle as well. And I thought, right, I can't really do this as a tasting just by myself. It'd be much nicer to do that with somebody else. So I'm going to hold off on doing my actual Desert Island Dram. But I'm come up with a plan B. And that takes me back to the £360 bottle of whiskey, which I discovered in the back of my shelves. Now, let's get the music on. There we go. Desert Island Dram music. Okay, so the whiskey that I've chosen to talk about is, I have it here. I have the bottle here. Isn't that pretty? It is Highland Park 18-year-old. So this is the bottle that it's all come out of. Now, the reason it's a £360 bottle is because my father passed away and I got some of his old whiskey and this was in the collection. And I didn't even know that I had it. And I went, oh, there's a Highland Park. I can do that for the podcast for the opening episode because I've got stuff I can talk about with Highland Park. And in this case, it was the first place that I filmed when I was starting out as a filmmaker for whiskey. So I was lucky enough to go along as kind of the production assistant and second director for this shoot where we were filming Highland Park up on Orkney, which is right in the north of Scotland, in Kirkwall. And it was an amazing shoot. It was spectacular weather. We got these beautiful sunshine days. And if you have a look at that label on the front again, you can see how you've got the Rings of Brodgar there with this beautiful sunset going down, and we chased a presenter round the Rings of Brodgar as the sun was going down, doing take after take, just to get the right shot. It's got a very rich Viking culture up there, and if you go round the island, then there's these amazing sites which are ancient, 2,000 or 3,000 years old, incredible sites, and of course a lot of Viking folklore. And actually there's a load of World War II stuff there as well, and that World War II stuff, you've got the Churchill barriers and you've got ships that were scuttled up in Orkney. And actually last time I was up in Orkney, I went diving round one of the wrecks, and that's fascinating in itself. So it's really a really great place to visit, and there's now another whiskey distillery up there as well. I think it's Scapa. So you've got a couple of whiskey distilleries that you can visit when you're up there as well. Okay, so let's actually talk about this bottle of whiskey. So £360 because it was bottled in the 2000s. And the dram that we're going to be looking at is, if I press the right button, this dram here. So it's a slightly overly generous measure of whiskey. If you wanted to buy this right now, for the modern day version of it, which shouldn't have changed in taste very much, it's about £135, which is still a lot for a bottle of whiskey. It's not usually what I would spend. Again, I always try and keep things very accessible, but I'm not doing a very good job on that. So it's called the 18-year-old Viking Pride. You can get Highland Park, their standard 12-year-old is £35, so very accessible and a wonderful whiskey in itself. So let's have a wee taste of this then. Let me bring that over, avoid hitting the microphone too much. Give you the nice sting of this. Ready? Ready? I'm still on the wrong blooming camera. Shall I come back to the right camera? There we go. Let's just ping this off. Oh, listen to that. That sounds wonderful. I love these little cap things. Okay, so let's look at what we have in terms of the nose. Take your time. It's very rich. Notes of heather, bit of honey. There's maybe a hint of peat smoke. Very, very nice. Very nice. Very nice. Of course, I would say that. Okay. Now, I'm going to take a little sip of this. I think this is about 42%. Very sweet. It's got smokiness. There's a bit of peat in there, but not very much peat. It's not too much peat. One of the things with Highland Park is there's a couple of things that really stood out to me when I was there. And that was the maltings floor. It's got this wonderful Y-shaped maltings floor. And if you ever see the maltings and see it all being turned over, it just looks amazing. And it's one of the few places which has got its own maltings, because most of the maltings nowadays gets done en masse in places to a specification of the distillery. So they've got their own maltings floor. They also cut their own peat, and then that's fired up at the distillery. So there's a couple of things that really can make the whiskey quite unique. A little bit of floral notes on the nose. Let's have another wee sip of that. It's quite zesty. With a bit, it cuts through. It really does cut through your palate. It's, I mean, when I smell that, I can literally take me back to being in their warehouse where we filmed, a piece to camera where the presenter was walking. The presenter for that one was an actor called Gray O'Brien, who is still about, and he had been on Casualty and various things, and he was wonderful. He was really friendly, and he had the perfect charm for walking towards camera and telling people about this wonderful whiskey. So he would be walking down past the barrels and talking to camera. And, now I think about it, we had smoke machines, we had these big high-powered lights. And of course, nowadays, the lights are mostly LED, so they're much cooler, much safer and all the rest of it. But these big high-powered lights, you wouldn't want them to have fallen over anywhere near these barrels of whiskey. So there was a lot of precautions taken, even back then, because it was quite obvious what the fire risk would be. But it's quite amazing how that kind of technology has changed. It's now much safer even than it was then. And we were aware of what was going on even back then. So let me just open the whiskey up with a touch of water, okay? I'll always do this because it does tend to open up the flavors a little bit. And it's just a tiny, tiny touch of water that I'll do on that. There we go. Touch more. It's quite a big measure, which I won't be drinking all of right now. That's bringing out even more of that kind of warehousey smell. It's a little bit earthy, a little bit spicy. It's almost like a bazaar in the kind of Middle East where you get these smells coming across. And you've still got that sweetness there as well. Let's have another taste. It really is. You know, it's not full-blown Christmas cake. It's not that sweet. It's still got a little bit of sharpness. But it is there. You've got natural honeys that are coming through in a really, really nice way. Beautiful, beautiful whiskey. And the finish on that, it's warm. It really lingers. And that dried, rich fruit taste persists. That's a lovely, beautiful whiskey. So Highland Park 18-year-old, I would highly recommend. Maybe not at £360 a bottle. And you'd have to be buying it through an auction because you're not going to find one like that unless it's at the back of the cupboard. So I have to say, try it if you get a chance. Very, very nice. Okay, so that is us done with pretty much our first episode. I'm going to try and hit some positive bouncy music. Hey, there we go. So now that we have finished that tasting, let me tell you about what we'll be coming up with. We're going to be having some guests coming into the studio and coming through online. We've got a wonderful whiskey festival person who's going to be chipping in on the show, and we've got a whiskey expert who's got so many fascinating stories that will be coming up soon too. So please do subscribe, like, tell your mates about us. That would be massively appreciated. And hopefully when I hit this button, the show will play out.